So I wanted to start off just by way of introduction. Shiloh, can you basically just talk about your background within construction safety, as well as just what your hot button issues are, and then I'll move on to Almador so we can do the same thing.
All right. Well, I mean, I can start. I wasn't always in construction safety. I started out in general industry under 1910. I started out in the semiconductor industry and getting into safety that way. I guess actually I could go back all the way to my teenage years and say that I started into safety, learning to be a lifeguard and taking, training classes back then and swimming safety and rescue safety and such, and then
Hmm.
management of those things. And then joined the military, got involved with training and stuff there, got out of the military, went to work for semiconductor industry. And then along those lines, after being an employee, they said, "Hey, we have an opening for in the safety position." And I thought, why not? I'd give it a try. I knew you know, knew the topic of what we were working with, and let's see if I could apply the safety to go along with it. And then after many, many years of working in the semiconductor industry, I got a call saying, "Hey, would you like to switch sides of the house and come over and work on the construction side of things?" And I said, "Yeah, let's give it a try." And man, I fell in love with it. I started off with a subcontractor, electrical EC, and working with them for about 8.5 years, and learned a lot there. Used my networking connections within organizations like AGC. That's where I met individuals like Amador and Pat Walsh and a few of the others that are out there. Took training and courses with them and kind of learned that when it comes to safety, it's not really a competition. We're all on the same goal to get everybody to the same finish line. So there's no trade secrets. We all work together. What's the best way to implement this? Am I reading this right? What's the best course of action to move forward to get our guys safe?
Yeah.
Then after working, like I said, about 8.5 years for that EC and being a member of AGC, Associated General Contractors, I got a call from the safety director that was there saying, "Hey, you should come over and talk and see if you want to take over this position." So I came, talked, and everything seemed to work out right. And man, I love it here. Uh, this is where I'll be at till I retire.
Right.
I'm looking forward to it. I love being able to work with such a diverse group of individuals in the entire industry. We have our GCs, we have our subs, we have our suppliers, and everybody's got their own special niche at what they do and how they do it. And so we all work well together. And I collectively try to bring everybody together and get that information out to everybody. So that's a little bit.
Perfect. Thank
If
you
that's
so
what you're
much.
looking, if that's what you're looking for me.
Yeah, that's perfect. Amador, can you speak to your history and within the safety industry?
Yes, mine started very, very young. I've been in the construction industry since I was 12 years old. So a lot of people are like, "Whoa, 12? What is this? Child labor?" But I grew, yeah, I grew up in a construction family. So weekends, after school, summers, any kind of break, we were on job sites working for my father.
Hmm.
Okay, and he was in the residential business, and just seeing a lot of stuff at a very young age happen in the construction industry. Even before I started working for my father, he had already suffered a very terrible uh, accident where he fell 30 stories off of a scaffold system working on one of the buildings that I believe is on 7th and Congress downtown.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, so he obviously he survived, but he was messed up for a long time. Busted open his right shoulder and arm, lost the bicep, and I mean just seeing what my family experienced during this time, because I grew up in a household where the father worked and the mother stayed at home, so it took a big toll on the family, and just seeing that from a young age. And then as moving forward, as I started working with him, as I became a teenager, then he had an incident where he cut off all his fingers on his left hand using a table saw that did not have a guard on it. You
Whoa.
know, so yeah, I didn't at that time. I was like 15. I was like, I didn't know you were supposed to have a guard on the table saw. This is how we use stuff. So I learned a lot about what not to do very quick from failure. So by the time I was 18 and I graduated from school, and I continued to go to school, I had to pull away because I had a family very young, and I started my own business at the age of 18, going into 19. Custom hardwood flooring was the name of the business. I was in the residential field as a flooring company, and and safety was always very important to me because of those things that I saw as I was younger. And I transitioned from the residential side. I left that alone and decided, hey, I wasn't making enough money. The economy was going down. And then I invested in my own certifications and got my own license to be a crane operator. And from there, I started operating cranes, but that consisted of traveling. And there was a lot of safety that came into play when you're a heavy equipment operator, such as and that circled around through my 20s, all the way to like my later 20s, when I came back down to Texas, to be with my kids more, and the economy started to pick up a little bit more. So I came back and I started operating equipment here in Central Texas, and I realized this isn't what I want to do. I wanted something more meaningful. I just felt it in my heart, and safety was it. And that's when I started putting myself through training, put myself through courses. And next thing you know, I was a safety rep, for a company. And I went from safety rep to safety supervisor to safety manager, to a regional director to the director of safety is, where I'm at now. So 15, that started at the age of 27. So that is going on 15 years, flat in construction safety. And again, the purpose I got into it, one of the things I stress the most is making it personal. Again, speaking from personal experiences, I stress that so much whenever I speak, like in safety meetings or construction workers. I always make it personal. Like, think about your families, think about those people that are at home. Once upon a time, I was in the shoes of a family member at a very young age that had to experience a household that was suffering because of an incident that happened on a construction site with my father.
Mhm.
And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget my mother crying because we didn't have any money and we were eating powdered eggs, because there was no money being pulled in. So just that one incident, that lack of training, how it affected the whole family.
Yeah.
And that's just stuck in my heart ever since. And that's why I do what I do.
Yeah, and when you're talking about just your history, both of your histories with safety, it's not as extensive. Mine isn't anywhere near as extensive as yours. But in the Air Force, one of my jobs was to JI and rig um, uh, cargo and other types of equipment, heavy equipment for travel. So I would have to check parachutes, check fuel levels, make sure all the tie downs were correct. And when I was stationed at Pope Air Force Base slash Fort Bragg, there were constantly incidents where the letter of the regulations weren't followed, and someone almost always got hurt. And I would have to walk the sites when things would burn in, as they say, when a chutes didn't open, or if something wasn't tied down properly. And there's a very famous video that was taken in Afghanistan where a 747 was taking off from a very short runway. It goes up, ends over, and crashes. The cause of that was the improper tie down and JI.
I've seen
So
that.
yeah, and that thing is horrifying when you see it. And as I got out of the military, I worked for an environmental service company. Basically, anytime there was an oil spill or something like that, I would have to go or have to suck out bilge tanks and go to Key West Naval Air Station and be inverted, dressed in a plastic suit, or go into sewage tanks or JP4, JP8 tanks at the at Miami International Airport. And there were a couple of times where I got hurt. The first time I got hurt, my cornea got scratched because the fellow turned up the pressure on the pressure washer, exploded in my face, scratched my cornea. Second time, I was in a confined space in a 20,000 gallon JP4 tank, and I had to have a rebreather and a spotter. And the guy walked away while I was in the tank, and there was a crimp in the hose, and I couldn't breathe. So I almost passed out, perished that day. So safety has always been at the forefront of my mind, and I'm just so happy I'm working with Velocity View / Safety Assist now, because as we say, man, we want to bring everybody home safely. But that all being said, the crux of this conversation, really, I wanted to touch on a few different topics here. Just the topic of construction safety regulations and their importance, as well as the origins and the necessity, I think, for National Safety Month and this focus on construction safety, as well as just the top, in both of your opinions, the top safety regulations, OSHA regulations that are almost, you see constant failure to comply with those. So as far as just getting it started, how often do you folks, both of you, have to basically read the letter of the law to some of the people that may not be as familiar when you're on a site, or when you're just trying to train them on safety? And like, what are the biggest challenges when you're facing doing that in the construction industry for safety directors and people on site?
I think that that's a two-part question. How often are you having to do it? If you're working directly for one company, let's say you're the safety director for a subcontractor, or you're the safety director for a particular GC, you are providing that information. Well, one, two, that's even two things in itself. A subcontractor, you've got your standard crew of people that you're training and working with. And so you'll be able to train one thing, focus on the things that you're most needed attention. As an electrical contractor, you're going to focus on your electrical safety. You're not probably going to focus a lot on confined space or crane safety or trenching, and those type of things, if that's not what you do all the time. So you'll focus on those things that apply to you indirectly, working or to you directly, not indirectly. As a GC, you're picking up many subs that are working for you. So you do have a crane operator working for you. You do have a floor and tile guy working for you. You do have painters. You do have HVAC. You do have electrical. You have all of them. So you're having to cover and talk to make sure that they have all of that set up for what you're doing in your niche. Let's say you're a GC and you build schools. You're going to focus on, the subcontractors and the safety that applies to you there. My role here with AGC, I have to be able, or at least I try to be able, to speak on all topics, because our GCs are running the gambit of everything that we run across. Everything from, hey, we need to know about roadway flagging. We need to know about, pothole testing and doing all of this. We need to be able to go in and understand chemical safety. What's the best way to get our SDS information put out? And then all our, what we call our standard generalized training that we do from ground up and heavy equipment to your final fit and finishes on things.
Mm-hmm.
I was out on a job site today walking through and was talking about, hey, our biggest threat that I see on here, on this job site today is, what are you doing to provide heat illness protection for the guys? What are you doing to put the communication out there and requirements that, don't wait till a guy passes out when it's 110 degrees to start thinking about what you're going to start doing for heat safety. You need to start doing that now at 70 degrees before it gets to 110, which it's going to do that at 4 o'clock. And here's the rules. Here's what you need to do. Here's what we can, the better way to get this done.
And that speaks to, and Amador, do you have a comment on that as well?
Well, I mean, I agree 100% with everything Shiloh just said. But I'm going back to your question. Your question was, what do we see most challenging as far as us having to, address, the word of the law out in the on a construction site, correct?
Correct, correct.
Okay, so I'll generalize that question to one thing. One thing that I have seen that has not been consistent in a lot of safety programs through a lot of companies is the JHA system, the PTP system, or whatever, however you want to call it. It's just, that's just one of those things that's just always been so complicated to have like legit consistency on, you know, the individuals planning out their work and really following through. Now, companies put together, they generate, these precast plans or these JHAs for the employees, but do the employees really, really dissect and read them? Or if the employees have to fill them out on their own, they're never really, really up to port to what they're actually doing. And the reason why I'm saying that is I'll guarantee you at least 90% of the accidents that I have investigated have all that they all have that one thing in common. There was no JHA provided, or the tasks that they were doing was not reviewed.
Wow. And so maybe this is a stupid question. Again, I'm not going to say I'm a complete novice, but you guys have a wealth of knowledge beyond what I do. Does that speak to just poor handling of leading and lagging indicators when after,
Uh,
pre and after, or pre and post incident indicators, as far as how accidents can be prevented, and what did we learn?
yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Again, I mean, I've seen companies do a really good job on being proactive, pushing out, hey, we need a pre-task plan, or we need to review our work before we go. Before we start, we need to have a JSA system, and I don't really know how to get a grip on a really consistent system for it. And this isn't just me speaking. This is a conversation that I've had with many safety professionals that deal with the same thing. And this is a little bit in a different direction than what Shiloh was saying. What Shiloh was saying is correct. You have to address each individual sub because their expertise is going to be in one area. But this is more of a general subject that I see that's been a big challenge everywhere. I mean, your thoughts on that one, Shiloh?
Yeah, I agree with you on that, man. Like I said, a lot of times, if they're done, you can kind of see that they're pencil whipped. Honestly, hey, this is another piece of paperwork. Boss says I got to get this filled out before we can start. Here, sign this, get it done. And we're working. We're working for heights. We're working on cuts. We're working on electricity. Boom, and they go, and they feel like there's not a value added to it, and they don't go over it. And you're absolutely right. If you can't, you're only as good as what you can put on paper. If you can't prove it, you can't mark it down, then it doesn't stand. Being able to communicate what needs to be done and how it needs to be done thoughtfully and thoroughly is a big portion in doing all this. You go onto a job site and you're investigating why an individual fell off of a ladder, and you go to check that JHA and look at their PTPs and go, okay, did you even talk about ladder work before you started? Well, no, everybody knows you need to do it, but did you talk about it? Did you inform the individuals so that way it's fresh and in their mind?
Yeah.
I always go back to my military training. Before you did anything, you always had a pre-task briefing that you went through. Right? Here's what we're going to do. Here's who's in charge of this. Here's how we're going to get it done. Here's what time we're starting. Here's what time we're finishing. We're going to be on this pace. We're going to get it done like this. We'll be on this channel. You're bringing this, this, and this. They're bringing this, this, and this. And it gets all set out. And then when you're done, you do an after actions review. And here's how the day went and how we close out the day.
Yeah.
I mean, for every flight, there's a pre-flight checklist.
Yes.
So why would you not expect? I mean, you want to go through that. If you're jumping out of an airplane, you want to make sure that your parachute was packed right before you need it. All right. The same thing applies in construction. Hey, if you're going to be working with this dangerous equipment, if you're going to be working in this dangerous industry, identify it first.
Yeah.
Write it down and identify it. Hey, at least you've said this is, and if you forget something and somebody else is reading over it, they're your second check. Hey, man, you forgot to put this on here and this on here, or there's a better way to do this. Hey, why are we trying to hold up a 4-foot box on top of a ladder when we could put this box on top of a lift? Let's bring a lift in here and lift us and the box up versus me trying to balance it and keep it up. What are the safer ways of going about doing it? So,
Yeah, and that speaks to creating a culture of safety within the construction industry. And if you both could, it sounds like you both are on the same page as far as the best ways to do it. But what are some of the most effective programs you've seen? You don't have to give company specific names, but what are some of the best practices for creating that safety culture within a company?
You go, Shiloh. What I got one. Okay. So the most success that I've seen on creating this culture within a company was to really, really get into the ears of the CEO of the company, and these messages being delivered not from the safety manager, not from the safety director, but being delivered directly from the CEO of the company. Because once the CEO is on board and the CEO has your back on safety protocols, the project managers, the superintendents, the project directors, everyone else will their attention will be caught. And not saying that they'll agree, but it's going to get their attention if they hear it from the CEO. Now that's a challenge if you have a CEO that isn't on board. So I always felt it's our jobs to sell it. We sell safety. And as much as we say we give it away, we have to sell it because people have to buy into it. And when I say that, I'm meaning more the high level folks, the CEOs, the CFOs, project directors, the people that are going to actually give the direct order to the operational side of these construction companies. Those are the people that I target. And those are the people that I've reached. In the last company I was with, that's what I did. I went straight to the top. I kept bringing it up, but I brought it up in ways where it made sense. I brought it up in ways where it's like, hey, we need to do this. It's going to cost this much. I brought it up in ways where I said, hey, we need to do this. If we do it, this is what we're spending right now. This is what it's going to cost us if we don't do it. But this is how much it's actually going to save us if we start implementing these processes. And then I had to, put stats together. I had to put charts and data together to even show. So I'm not just speaking. It was a lot of legwork, but getting the buy-in from the highest leadership in the company was the first step to transition into safety culture of that company.
So when you're first bringing it to the CEO or owner, you have to frame it, if I'm understanding you correctly, from a productivity and quality standpoint, and then hit them with the understanding that once these rules are followed, revenue is generated.
Well, that not exactly. I know I shook my head. Yes, what I did, I tied safety in with quality.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I tied safety in with quality. I didn't bring up productivity at first because I mean you can have a high productivity rate, and I've said this before. You can have a quota of producing 10,000 items in a week, and you hit that quota. Actually, you passed it. You produce 20,000 items in a week, but they're all garbage. You get what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Where's the quality? So the quality has to come first. And I know that the construction field has had a backwards mindset for a lot of years where it's like, production first, because that's what makes money. However, people have learned, by failure, they learn by mistakes when they focus on production primarily. then you're leaving room for error in quality. You're leaving room for error in safety. And what does that do? It causes rework. It causes accidents. It causes incidents, and it costs you money. So put it in a way to where I tied quality and safety in together to be the end product. That in itself will raise productivity. And once we were able to show that, like, look, we focus on good quality, we focus on being safe, everything runs smoother, productivity rises on its own. But again, this took years of implementation and data gathering. And once I put that together, it took me like 2 years to put all that together. And once I had it in one pot and I showed it, and I was like, look, here's the proof. Here's the thing. It's not just costing money to keep us. We're not falling plateau, but now we come to a point where safety is making money. Safety is making money. And once I put it in those words, it was sold. It was sold very easy.
Yeah, I can agree with that one as well. For the longest time, you look at safety as, oh, safety is going to cost me this much money. Safety is going to take away this much time. Safety for the longest time, was almost like a liability that people or individuals and your CEOs thought, it's going to cost me. When you had to start showing them, hey, look at your return on your investment on there. Look what you're not having to spend. Look what we're saving on doing this and saving on doing that. And then you can start tying into a lot of different things. Right now in our industry, manpower is a big thing. How do you keep the employees that you've got, the good employees that you've got? How do you get more people to come into your company and your industry? Right now, we are at such a shortage on manpower. I guarantee you, if an employee is out there and he hears, hey, I can go to work for company A, and man, they are just known for killing people getting hurt, blah, blah, blah. They don't care about your safety. They pay good, or you got, hey, I can go over here to company B. These guys are known for their safety. I'm going to be safer. I'm going to be supported. The employees are going to go there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it shows. And so when you've got a good safety record and a good process, one of the kind of ties in with this. I had a company that I helped work with. They had a large mobile fleet. So their guys were driving work trucks, vans, pickups, and such for their day-to-day business, about 47 vehicles. They had 12 vehicle wrecks that they were found liable for in one calendar year. Now you can imagine what your insurance policy would look like if you had 12 wrecks in a year, right? Going through the So try paying commercial insurance on those vehicles and covering the same thing and going about it. There's lawyers on TV around here that are just famous for, hey, have you been hit by a commercial vehicle? Give us a call. We'll make you a millionaire. And so there's all this going on. And so I sat down with them and said, hey, are your fleet, are they good drivers? Well, yeah, they're all good drivers. How do you know? You've had 12 wrecks in 1 year. Well, yeah, but they're a little. I'm like, regardless of what you're saying, you've had 12 wrecks in 1 year. What are you doing to change it? What are you doing it just to monitor it? I said, let's put a GPS and a tracker, and some of them with video, some without video, into all your fleet. Let's invest in this. And after a year, if we're not seeing a return on that investment, then we can stop it. So he shakes his head. I'm like, you can have one lawsuit for $100,000. I can outfit your fleet for a year for $70,000. Let's put this on here. So we put this on their fleet. We started monitoring the way that they drove, how hard they were braking at red lights. Does that show inattention to what they were doing, or were they speeding? Actual speeding, set the limits on that. Then we found out that, hey, you can actually monitor your productivity. What time was the foreman getting to the job site? Was the job scheduled to start at 7 and he's showing up at 7:15, and you got 15 guys standing around for 15 minutes waiting for the foreman to get there? Hey, you got man-hour labor that you could save right there, right? And so you started monitoring, so people became more accountable for their time accountable for the driving. It started sending them alerts. Hey, you're speeding. Your phone would ding. You didn't have to answer, but your phone would start dinging because you would get a text message telling you that you were speeding in the company vehicle. You would get a phone call from your manager going, hey, I just got a hard braking alert. Is everything okay? Were you in an accident? So guys started being more cautious in their driving. In a 1-year time period, they went from having 12 wrecks to 0.
That's huge.
They dropped that right there. And he goes back, he goes, wow, this is amazing. Not only have I can now track my productivity, where the guys are, I don't have to worry if he's on this job or is he on that job. I can pull up the tracking. I know exactly where he is. And if he's on that job, I can see if he got there on time or if he's leaving early. I can see where he goes to lunch. Hey, why are you down here at the bar for lunch? And you can call and follow up on that. And then, like I said, the accidents and guys being more aware of their own driving, they became better drivers. They started driving within the limits. They started braking easier. And so he saw a huge, he went from 12 accident claims, averaging anywhere from $70,000 to $100,000 in accidents, to 0. And so it was paying for itself.
That actually speaks to my next question, as far as, because we're living in the new millennium here, and whenever I talk to some, well, not whenever, a lot of times when I talk to construction industry safety professionals, they're still doing everything on paper. And you just spoke to how technology within a year reduced 12 accidents to 0 in 1 year, just by implementing something that cost them less than a lawsuit would, much less.
Yes.
So what are some of the other trends outside of that industry, but still staying in the vein of construction, the construction safety realm, as far as technology is concerned? What are some of the trends that you're saying that you wish that more people would adopt?
And right out the bat, the invention of iPads and tablets on a job site was a huge game changer for construction. Then your company's got on board. Not only are you sending your emails and being able to get that, now you're getting your plans, you're getting your request for changes, you're getting all this stuff coming through, you're getting your safety talks mailed out. You can actually take video. There's a lot of good companies, and some of them are, that work with us, groups like Procore, right, that are set up, Bluebeam, Safety Assist. You guys got a good program that's set out there for all of this as well. So there are great programs that are out there, and now they're being adapted to the field, and we're being able to use it. The new, the younger generation that is becoming the new face and lifeblood of construction, they've been working on these things since they were kids. 10 years old, 4 years old, they're using tablets, and they're quite comfortable with using it. And so, it's just nature for them. And, what? Write it on paper? Why? I've got it right here, and I can pull it up. I can zoom in to the exact details that I want. I can search for what I'm looking for with a simple keystroke. And the tablets and electronic data on the job site, huge game changer.
Yeah, thank you, Shiloh. And what were your findings, Amador?
Yeah, I feel the same way. The huge takeaways for adding technology into construction. I mean, just think about how much information used to get lost, used to get misplaced, used to be forgotten, and people still forget, because they're out there working. But now it's in the palm of your hands. It's in the palm of your hands. Opening up your phone, clicking, opening up an app, clicking a couple of buttons, and all of a sudden, this information that you forgot, it's in your hands again. So that's really important as far as the field level, because that's usually what ends up happening. You hear all this information in your orientation, in your safety meetings, your toolbox talk meetings, in your trainings, and both of you are ex-military, So think about that. All the training that you went through and that you learned, you were out in the field, you were out in the suck, in the middle of it. How much of that training really comes out once you're on the front line. I don't know. You guys tell me. Is it safe to say that you're going to remember every single thing that you were trained on, or you may forget a couple of things?
Well, it becomes repetition, frankly, because just like anything else, if you build a habit for it, you're going to do it almost unconsciously. You know, every
Yeah.
time I would have to do any kind of rigging or JIing, there was a complete checklist that I had to follow. And
Yes.
I can remember multiple times having to tell a full bird colonel, "You're not flying with this the way because all it takes is one," and I have to sign every form that says yes, it's safe to fly, and I'm held personally accountable and liable for that. And I don't want anyone to get hurt. So
Okay.
it became incumbent upon me to really just stay ahead and also be more forward thinking. And actually that leads to probably one of my last questions with regard to this is how do I mean we spoke to technology, but are there other ways in your ideal situation where companies can stay up to date on the latest safety news and trends and be more forward thinking, be proactive instead of reactive?
Hmm. New trends. I'm hesitant to say this one, but AI.
Don't be hesitant because look, we're all going to have to submit to our robot overlords at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am a complete tech dork, but I know that it's people like they kind of balk at AI, but I'm telling you, it's as a tool, it's useful.
Yep.
We can't rely on it. A certain level of experience and common sense has to be interjected in that, but you can rely on it because AI has the ability to pull trends very quickly and you can learn from those.
Yes, that's exactly where I was going to go with that, Mike. From the technology side, that's what's been a huge game changer. Remember when I told you I had to get all this data, I had to put together all this information to show to the CEO that we were saving money. How do you think I did that? It wasn't by pen and paper.
Oh
You
no, sir.
know, it was, all of it was getting together a team of 14 to 17 safety managers, getting all the superintendents that would buy in, get them on board. So having a huge, a huge gang of folks that were bought in, to make this process happen so they can help me load this data into the system. Once the data was loaded into the system, then it generated, our costs, our budget projections, where we're headed. It would identify trends, not just not just on one job site, but say for a company on other job sites around the country. What are they seeing the most? And or maybe that looks different from region to region, but you're able to identify trends by recording lessons learned and near miss or good catches or whatever you want to call them, not waiting until people are actually injured. That was a huge, huge stepping stone for some of the companies that I work for, is getting the buy-in for people to report good catches or near misses. Mike, to describe that a little bit to you, it's an event that took place where no injury occurred. However, if there was an individual in the area, they could have been hurt or severely injured, or it could have been fatal.
Mm-hmm.
That in my opinion is a near miss or a good catch. Say, I don't know, a counterweight from a swing stage falling off the top of a building falls and it just hits the ground, right?
Yep.
No one got hurt. Yeah, back before, it was very common for people to say, "Oh, it fell, nothing happened, no one got hurt, keep going." People's minds are changing. People's minds are changing. The industry has changed a lot now. Just like Shiloh said before, people are going where it's safer.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, that mindset and this new generation of construction workers that's coming out, they're doing a really good job of saying, "Hey man, there's an open ditch over there. Somebody can fall in it. Did somebody fall? No, but somebody can. That's a good catch." So being to identify those things, those are the trends that a lot of companies are looking at. The what ifs. And I hate to say the what if word because it's a two-sided. People say it's what if it didn't happen. Don't focus on it. No, this is what if, but this is a realistic situation.
Yeah.
If somebody isn't paying attention, they're going to fall. They're going to hurt themselves there. So the lessons learned, the good catches, able to identify trends. Say, let's just take a company saying in the Texas region using heat illness, as a trend. What are we seeing? Oh, the data pulled up, on our dashboard that we had, 5 first aids in the past month where people, were suffering from some type of heat exhaustion. It wasn't very serious. They were good. No clinic visits or whatever. But you're starting to see, hey, it's not that the heat stroke isn't going to happen. It's when it's going to happen. When you're seeing trends, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So being able to track trends early on a proactive note before accidents or injuries even happen, that is a key. That is the key to have a proactive culture. And those are the cultures that these employees that are out in the field, and I've seen this personally. This is a real testimony. There was a general contractor had a formwork company working for them, and from one day to the next, the foreman from that formwork company got up and said, "You know what? I'm leaving. I quit." And he took like 15 employees with him.
Yeah.
So that's 16 employees. And I remember hearing, the superintendent and the safety manager from that job say, like, we don't know what happened. They just left. And then, I didn't think too much about it. And then I'm riding around. This was in the Rainy district in Austin. And then I went to another district, what's called the Mueller district in Austin. I went over there to visit a job site, and I saw this foreman. That quit and took all of his crew with him. He was standing, by a stop sign, waiting for, a superintendent from another GC to come talk to him. And I know the guy. I've been knowing him for years. So I stopped him. I'm like, "Hey, man, what happened? I heard you were working up there." And he was like, "No, you know what? They paid good." But he said, "But it was just too dangerous over there. It was too dangerous. They were having a hard time providing us water, getting through, with safety issues I was bringing up. It was just too dangerous. I don't want none of my guys getting hurt."
Mhm.
So it wasn't even about the money for them. It wasn't even about the money. They didn't leave for an extra quarter or an extra dollar. They left because it was unsafe. They left to go work for somebody that worked safer. And that's the truth. And that happened this happened last summer. So it wasn't that long ago. And this is the direction that a lot of workers are headed towards, man. They want to make it home.
Yeah, but the employee wants to feel, value, not only value in what you're paying them, but that you value their life, their health, and their safety. When you go in there, like, man, I wish my company provided safety and did this and did this. I see it on these jobs, and these guys don't do it. And that, man, sure enough, they won't stay there long enough. They don't feel valued because either the company or the situation that they've been asked to work in hasn't had safety value put onto it.
Yeah. So we're getting close to the end here, but I just wanted to ask, because it is National Safety Month, if you could go back in time or just pull someone off to the side and say, these 2 things you should really focus on as far as construction safety. Now, of course, we're talking about hydration and the heat, but what are just 2 key issues, 2 key takeaways you wish you could pull somebody aside and say, just if you could?
What key focus on safety? How do you say, okay, which one?
Yeah, I know it's tough, but
Yeah.
I mean, just there's overarching things, but also there's key things that you should. I'm just thinking I would look at as far as being proactive instead of reactive, tracking incidents, or like you said, Amador, near misses, because those, eventually, if they're not tracked and you don't follow the trends, something will happen. So that's just my first thought. But with both of your experiences and what you've seen, what would be something that you would immediately lead with?
I had the fortune to come up in the general industry and working in the semiconductor industry, and I worked with a lot of engineers, and I got to track and trend certain things. And so when I switched over to construction, one of the first things I did, I sat down, I went back through and I took a look. I wanted to know, hey, what's the history here? What are the past injuries like, and what happened? And so I started collecting some data and started crunching it. And I started adding in all the factors that I could, and not knowing what I was going to come out with. And sure enough, I tracked it and I found it, and I questioned it against other safety professionals, and they said, hey, yeah, you're right. Took a look at it and said, the longer you're on a job site, so if you got a job that normally runs 6 months, 8 months, and all of a sudden you're doing one that's going to run 24, 36 months, right? So there's a long running job. So when you have long running jobs with a high head count, so the more men or hands that you have working on that job site, and the longer that they're on that job site, your injury rates start to go up more and more towards the end of that job. So it kind of makes me think complacency. Hey, we've been doing it, nobody's got hurt. We've been doing it, nobody's got hurt. We've been doing it like this. It's easy when you got a job. Hey, this job's going to last us 6 weeks. The guys get focused on their safety, to get focused on their task. They can see the beginning, see the end. They work through it. They're good to go. Job happens, no incidents. Now you get them on a job where it's been stretched out for this longer period of time, and you're getting cuts to the hands. You're getting something in the eye. You're getting a twisted ankle. You're getting, any matter of little things. And the more little ones you start to have, that pyramid comes into place. Sooner or later, you're going to have a bigger one. And man, it was coming through and ringing true. And so I sat down and said, hey, how long is this job going to run? Is this a long running job? Is it a short running job? What's our head count on this job? Okay, this job's got all the ingredients to bake the wrong kind of cake. Mm-hmm. Let's focus on this one more so than the others. Let's focus really hard on this one and constantly drive home that, hey, this is going to happen if we don't do this. And I was making the guys on the job, instead of me walking out and trying to identify the hazards, I'd walk out on the job and ask them to identify the hazards. You tell me what's the most hazardous thing that you've got to do today, or that will be around you today. And the guys started interacting with me like that on a daily basis. Instead of coming out to see them once a month or even once a week, maybe I was seeing them 2 or 3 times a week, making sure I stopped by that job and spoke with as many guys as I could, and to help alleviate it. And sure enough, on the jobs, like I said, that you couldn't do that, and if you left them alone, you started having more and more of the smaller injuries. And sure enough, you're going to have a larger injury.
Excellent. Thank you, Shiloh. Amador, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, my answer for this one, I'd like to go back and focus on one thing differently that I didn't focus on, in my early career, was the management of change. The management of change is—
That's a perfect. Yeah. Go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. No, you're good. The management of change was something that in my early career was looked over a lot, because things change constantly. But when I speak of management of change, I'm speaking more of a bulk change, not just like, oh, hey, we were going to dig over here, but it changed. We're going to dig over here now. No, I'm speaking like of a whole system, a whole system that has changed within your program, within your company. And not because you wanted it to, because the industry went through a change. And that's what I saw being the biggest challenge back, when I first started, because when these things would happen, for example, like Shiloh said, we made the transition to iPads and technology. That was a huge change. Not everybody was happy about it when it happened, not because it was something, brutal, or it was just something they didn't know. It was just something they didn't know. People get into repetitive, like you said, complacency phases. They're used to working certain kind of ways, and it's been like that for lots of years. But I think it's safe to say in the past 15 years, especially in these past 10 years, and even more in the past 5 years, man, the construction industry has evolved tremendously. You know, it's constantly changing, but on a in a positive direction. But early on, when these changes took place, it was harder to get buy-in. It was harder to get buy-in because so many people are used to, how many times have you heard this? I've been doing it like this for 30 years, and and it's worked, so far.
Yeah.
That's what we were battling during, these changes. How do you manage that? That's what we've had to learn as safety professionals. I know for myself, speaking personally, a personal testimony, especially my last 10 years in construction, that's been my hugest, you know, just thing that I've been working on, helping people manage change. Uh, because when you don't, you get left behind. You get left behind. The industry is going to move forward. You're going to have other contractors, whether they're specialty trades or GCs, that are on board, that are accepting this change, that are moving forward, and the companies that are not are getting left behind. And by the time they realize, like, oh, we're far behind, and maybe they're just not it anymore. So for
Yeah.
me, that's been a huge deal. And technology is what's helped with that management of change. How do we do this? We have to show people that technology wasn't complicating things. We had to train people, we had to teach them and show them that technology actually is simplifying all of our processes. It's helping make things safer. It's helping track our financial, obligations better. It's helping us track trends. I mean, it's helping us stay up to date with the latest and greatest. I mean, there's so many things that technology offers now. And as we are now in 2023, I can think off the top of my head, like maybe five superintendents that I know very closely that work for different companies that maybe 15 years ago, if I were to show them an iPad and say, hey, this is where it's going, they'd probably tell me to go screw myself, But but now they're the main ones that are out there with these iPads. Like, man, oh man, I look how easy this is now. It's that's it for me.
Yeah, and just as a closing thought for myself, I don't have a process. I mean, I don't have a problem with there being processes in place. I do have a problem with people that can't break a paradigm just because they're stuck. And this is the way we've done it, and this is the way we're going to do it. What they
Yeah,
need to understand is that technology improves the process and it improves safety, and not just technology for technology's sake, but for quality, productivity, safety, the whole realm. But I have to say thank you both for taking the time just to educate me and our listeners, viewers. And I'm going to actually stop recording now. Let's see. Yeah.